Now students, we will talk about the next topic, that is 15.5, waterborne infectious diseases. So we have to discuss it in four headings. The first one is the definition, second one is the causes, the third one is the waterborne diseases, types of the waterborne diseases, and the last one is the prevention for the waterborne diseases. So let's start from the first one heading, that is the definition. Just listen to me flat and highlight it on your books carefully. Diseases that spread because of drinking polluted water and eating food prepared with a polluted water are known as waterborne infectious diseases. Now students, what is mean by waterborne infectious diseases? Students, the type of diseases that basically spread due to the drinking of the polluted water and also eating the prepared food that is actually prepared from the polluted water, that type of diseases are known as waterborne infectious diseases. Now, secondly, we will talk about the causes of the waterborne infectious diseases. So, water pollution may be due to the toxins and the microorganisms. Now, students, water pollution is due to the two reasons: toxins and the microorganisms. The toxins like the arsenic, lead, mercury, and the many organic chemicals. Now, the microorganisms are viruses, bacteria, protozoans, and the worms. Lack of the proper sanitation facilities is a main cause of the rapid spreading of the waterborne diseases. Now students, thirdly we will talk about the waterborne diseases like the hepatitis, hookworm, diarrhea, dysentery, cholera, fluorosis, typhoid, and the cryptosporidium. Okay students, now we will talk about the some of the waterborne infectious diseases. The first one is the diarrheal diseases. Intestinal diseases such as cholera that may cause dangerous dehydration. Diarrhea may be caused by the viruses, bacteria, and the parasites. So students, if we are talking about the diarrheal diseases, so they are actually the intestinal diseases such as cholera, in which there is a excessive loss of the water content of the body, and due to the excessive loss of the water content of the body due to the loose stools or the dangerous dehydration appears, and that type of diseases are maybe due to the contaminated water that contain viruses, bacteria, and the parasites. These viruses, bacteria, and the parasites, when get enter into the water, into the bodies, they basically interact or interfere with the organ system, and that type of diseases in which there is a severe dehydration takes place, that type of diseases are known as the diarrheal diseases that may cause due to the contaminated water that contain viruses, bacteria, and the parasite. Now the next one is the dysentery. Dysentery is an intestinal disease which is typically caused by a certain bacteria or the parasites. It is characterized by the severe diarrhea that may be accompanied by the blood and the mucus. Now students, the severe form of the diarrhea is known as dysentery. It is also intestinal diseases that is caused by certain bacteria and the parasites, but as I'm saying that it is a severe form of the diarrhea, the symptoms of the severe form of the diarrhea that is known as dysentery is that the stool may contain the blood and the mucus as well. So students, the next one is the cholera. Cholera is an acute infectious infection caused by the bacteria Vibrio cholera, which may be found in the water contaminated by the human feces. Cholera causes severe dehydration and can be fatal. Student, cholera is basically a acute infection that is caused by a specific bacteria that is known as Vibrio cholera, that is basically present in the contaminated water in which the human feces can interfere or enter into the water. When the human feces get entered into the water, that type of contaminated water when intake by the human bodies that contains the specific type of bacteria like the vibrio cholera and into the body, they cause severe form of the diarrhea that may be fatal in nature. Okay students, now the next one is the cryptosporidium. So the waterborne microorganism like the protozoa that cause the gastrointestinal illness including the diarrhea and the vomiting. These tiny pathogens are found in the water surfaces sources like the reservoirs, lakes, and the rivers. So students, these protozoans when enters in the water, so they contaminate the water. That contaminated water that contains that particular type of the protozoans, when get enters in the human body, they cause severe diarrhea and the vomiting. So that type of condition is known as cryptosporidium. Now the next one is the fluorosis. Fluorosis is a disease caused by the consumption of the excess fluoride. Fluorosis can cause the bone and the teeth damage. So students, as you know that the fluoride is useful for our teeth and the bone growth as well, but and you know that excess of everything is bad. When there is excessive consumption of the fluoride, and alternatively they harms the bone and the teeth also. So that type of condition in which there is a accumulation or the consumption of more and more fluoride, so that type of condition is known as fluorosis, and the fluorosis basically affects the bone and the teeth. Now the next one is the hepatitis. It is a liver inflammation commonly caused by one of the 5 viruses that is known as hepatitis A, B, C, and E. Hepatitis A and E can be transmitted by the contaminated water. Students, actually the hepatitis is considered as a liver inflammation that is caused by the different type of the viruses, and that viruses are of different strains like the A, B, C, and E. So the hepatitis A and E can be spread or the transmitted by the contaminated water. Now we will talk about the hookworms. Hookworm is a parasitic worm that infects the small intestine. Severe cases can be result in the anemia and stunted growth in the children. Hookworm larvae enter into the body through the skin, often via the feet, spread by the poor sanitary conditions. Hookworms infect about 1 billion people worldwide per annum. Now students, if we are talking about the hookworm, it is a parasitic worm. Parasitic worm means that it lives in our body and alternatively it harms us. So students, that parasitic worm that is known as hookworm basically attach with the small intestine through their hooks, and they basically sucks the blood of the they basically sucks the nutrients and the bloods from the small intestine. And when they basically suck and the nutrients of the human body from the small intestine, they cause anemia and stunt the growth of the children. So students, these hookworm, basically the hookworm larva get enters into the body through our feet, through our skins, and the spread of the hookworm within the body, the penetration of the hookworm within the body is due to the poor sanitary condition. The next one is the jaundice. Jaundice is caused by excess of the bile pigments in the blood. Liver ceases to function and the eye turns yellow. Patient feel weakness and the fatigue. Now students, as you know, if we are talking about the pigments in the body, so students, there is a production of the bile pigments in the body. When the blood cells are degraded, there is a production of the bile pigments takes place. So when there is excessive production of the bile pigments takes place within the body, so student, these bile pigments due to the accumulation affect the functioning of the liver and also cause the yellowing of the eyes. The patient feel illness, sickness, or the fatigue. And the last one is the typhoid. So the dangerous bacterial disease often spread by the contaminated water or by the food prepared by the contaminated water. Students, typhoid is actually the bacterial disease that is spread due to the contaminated water, intake of the contaminated water, and the food prepared by the contaminated water. Okay students, now we will talk about the prevention of the waterborne diseases. Here there are 3 methods that how can we prevent the waterborne diseases. The first one is the provision of the safe water. The second one is the disposal of the sewage, and the control of the toxin chemical is the third one. Let's start from the first one, that is the provision of the safe water. Now students, drinking water must be properly treated and purified. So students, we have to use different type of filters to clean and purify the water, and we have to drink the purified and the treated water, that we have to get safe from the waterborne diseases. Secondly, we will talk about the disposal of the sewage. There must be adequate sanitary disposal of the sewage. Any type of the waste must not be thrown or discharged directly in the water supplies and the reservoir. Now students, it's our responsibility that we have to dispose our sewage at a proper place. We cannot throw it directly on the roads, outside the homes, or we have to directly pour it into the water bodies. So students, if we are doing that, we can alternatively harm ourselves, because these sewage may when dissolved in the water, they contaminates the water, and that contaminate water when intake by our bodies as well. So we can get different type of waterborne diseases, and that waterborne diseases is due to our own activities. So it's our responsibility that we have to dispose the sewage at a proper place. We cannot throw it at anywhere in the environment. So the next one is the control of the toxin chemicals. So chemical contamination can cause acute illness, slow poisoning, and you can say that carcinogens, toxin contaminants. There must be a strict control over the use of the pesticides and the other chemicals. Now students, these basically toxic chemicals create the acute illness. They act as a slow poisons in a form of the contaminants, carcinogens. Students, so we have to avoid the use of the pesticides, because these pesticides may contain different chemical compounds, and the use of the pesticide is that they may control the growth of the uh, pest, but alternatively they harms our society, they harms ourselves. They, how can they harms ourselves? Because these pesticides are the chemical compounds used to kill the pest. When these basically pesticides get enters into the water bodies, so the water may no longer safe for the drinking purpose, and when the water is no longer safe for the drinking purpose, it become unfit. So these unfit and the contaminate water may harms the human beings.